Good evening to everybody. Good evening. This is Thursday, the 25th of June. Christopher Daigen here, coming to you. This is the first announcement, first section of our performance, starting at 6 p.m. Thank you for joining us. For those of you who are already watching or already seeing this come up as a live stream, our performance will start in 10 minutes time at 6 p.m, just checking that the stream is working and to share with you a few details about this evening's program and how you can support us if you'd like to. Tonight's piano hour is the version of our program, Thursday night program, which is a little bit more relaxed, a little bit informal. I'm trying something quite different and quite interesting, I think. This evening program, a selection called Beautiful Moments, where not only is the music beautiful, of course it's beautiful, it's going to always be beautiful, but I'm also going to be detailing some of the aspects, not technical, but really just pointing things out about why they are actually beautiful, and perhaps give you some pointers of what you can actually listen to in these pieces of music, and some very varied and hopefully interesting pieces to play for you tonight. So we're hoping that everyone is able to join us. We're hoping that everyone is seeing on Facebook and on the YouTube platform. I'm just going to check right now, in fact, to see if YouTube is working. And it is. Apparently YouTube is working, so that's great news. We did have a bit of an issue where our live feed was not being shared to YouTube, and I see that it is working and it is live. Fantastic. There are already 3 people watching on YouTube, and I'm also going to do a little check here to see who is joining us now on Facebook. Always interesting to see who's actually watching and who's actually joining us here. I am looking currently at my pianist page, and I see Joy Barton Maxwell. Joy, thank you for joining us. We have fantastic sound as usual, thanks to Kevin Little of Big Beats, Pietermaritzburg's premier sound visual providers. Wonderful selection, wonderful service. They've been supporting us with the sponsorship of this again. And we've also had some adjustments to our camera coloring and angle. It seems I was looking like I'd spent a little bit too much time near a nuclear reactor, resident in Chernobyl maybe. So we managed to adjust that. I'm hoping I'm not looking lobster-like this evening. I don't want to look like a lobster. I want to look just okay. Who else is joining us? Marilyn Bristow, thank you for joining us tonight. I hope you're going to enjoy this evening's selection of music. As I say, if you are able to support us as usual, there are various ways of funding, giving us support and funds for this particular program. And that's obviously all available at our website. You'll find a little page there about buying tickets or donating, but also there's certainly the easiest to do a direct EFT transfer, and please do include your name for that, because we do like to acknowledge, it's really important to me to acknowledge all those who are supporting us. And also there's a very useful platform via Yoko. You can search Music Revival on Yoko, or you can actually just send a WhatsApp to a Music Revival office line, Music Revival 083 417 4473, and I will actually send you a direct link to the page, which is incredibly useful and a great service there provided by Yoko as well. As I said, we will be starting at 6 p.m. with a really wonderful selection of music that I've called Beautiful Moments, and not just that the music is beautiful, but I'm really going to be trying to explain and give you some pointers about why the music is beautiful and what's really going on. Now I'm looking here at my feed. I see Margot Sennett Friedman. Margot, hello. Good to see you here. Thank you for joining us. Julie Dowdle from Turkey. Atina Tacheva from Bulgaria once again. And Arthur Edward Dixon from Durban. Yes, you see that our YouTube feed, if you are wanting to watch us on YouTube, it is actually working. Also on Vimeo. I've discovered from a number of people that they actually quite like having the best of both worlds. They'll cast their YouTube or Vimeo feed, which is also available on our website, to the big screen, but then watch the comments and comment on the phone, which is always quite fun. So hello to Gail Gemmel, Nolene Felden, Bridget Harrison, good to see you here. Lovely, Margot, lots of hearts and kisses, always well received. Thank you, Margot, that's very, very generous of you. Always very exciting. I'm always a little bit nervous. Even though this is now stream number 26, live stream number 26. Daniel Carlitz, welcome to you. Number 26 for our 36 for our live stream. It's always a bit uncertain as to whether it's all going to work. So I'm very relieved. Both of our sessions failed last week on YouTube, which a large number of people do watch on the YouTube feed, the live stream on YouTube. We know it's very useful, it's very reliable, and I hope you're noticing the wonderful image this evening. I see there already the numbers are climbing on YouTube, that I'm looking a little less sunburnt, a little less lobster-like, you might say, with the coloring. I guess there's a lot of red around me, a lot of red walls, a lot of black piano. Otherwise, it's a black, red, and white figure that goes on. This evening's program, I've got music by Francois Couperin, Robert Schumann, Albanus, Scott Joplin, one of my own pieces, music by Ravel and Gershwin, some interesting stories, but also some lovely details to break some of the music down. Sarah Giles, lovely to see you watching. Barry Lovegrove, Barry is watching from the kitchen next door. Thank you, Barry, for keeping track that everything is happening. Sarah, I hope you are watching with Emily and with Alex. I'm sure they're enjoying watching to see what's going on. It looks very familiar to them. Franny du Toit, Ian Bailey, Franny and family from Middelburg, thank you again for your support. Always lovely to see you here. I hope you're going to enjoy this evening's very informative and I think quite interesting program. Just a few minutes to go before we start at 6 p.m. on the dot. As I mentioned before, if you are able to support us, there are various platforms that you can donate to us at musicrevival.co.za, but also the Yoko channel is working very, very nicely. And apparently I need to get something called a QR code. I'm not very clued up on this, but a QR code is coming soon, and hopefully you'll be able to scan and flash your phone at the screen and pick up a QR code immediately, which it seems is the most direct and easiest way to actually everyone to approach us and to support us. Vinci Filipova from Toronto, good to see you here. Welcome once again. Elizabeth Dixon and Lara Kirsten, thank you for joining us. Thank you for joining us this evening. The Yoko platform is very popular. It's turned out to be quite a thing. As you can see, our video feed, well, you actually can't see it because I've got that graphic up. I'm going to go back to our screen. You can see our video feed is looking coloring is very sharp, very red. We've got lovely orchids, beautiful paintings, some lovely backdrop for you to enjoy. I hope you're watching on your big screen smart TV, or if you're watching via your phone or on your laptop, I hope you're using headphones or earbuds or not earbuds, buds or some sort of in-ear device, because it really helps hugely with the sound, which is magnificent, as always, as I said, thanks to Kevin Little of Big Beat, who is supporting us. Kim Jones, hello, thank you for joining us tonight. I hope you're all finding yourself comfortable. You have something to keep you company for the next 45 minutes to an hour. And it's, as I say, a very interesting, little more blunt. Thank you for joining. Very interesting, very enjoyable program for you tonight. And I hope you enjoy the selection of music and can just while away a possibility to venture into another dream space and something just very, I think, quite interesting and beautiful music in some beautiful moments. And I know that Geraldine Buerte is going to enjoy that. Geraldine's always very supportive and has always so many lovely and positive things to say about our concerts. Thank you, Geraldine. Thank you for joining us and for your support once again. Yes, hello, Geraldine. I see you. I hear you. Right, well, it is 6 p.m. on the dot, so good evening again. My name is Christopher Daigan. Welcome to this Thursday edition on the 25th of June of Piano Hour. Piano Hour on Thursday is our informal, relaxed, and quite varied selection of music. And I have a program for you tonight, which I've called Beautiful Moments. Not that all the music that we're playing is beautiful. I think all music is absolutely magnificent. But this evening's program, I'm hoping to point out and possibly give you a few pointers and a few details as to why some of these moments in the music actually sound so magnificent. They give you those goosebump feelings when you listen to them. And I'm hoping to explain and just give you a show and tell, you might say, as we go through. So I'm going to start off with two pieces. A piece of music that I've played several times, I think, on this program by the 17th century French composer François Couperin, called Les Barricades Mystérieuses. I've been practicing that. My French is improving, I'm told. Been practicing that one. The Mysterious Barricades is the title referring, possibly some people think, to the point between life and death, between good and bad, beginning and end. And possibly even some people have said it refers to a woman's eyelashes, because in the courts of the time it was thought to be the last point of resistance that a woman had against a man's advances, so fanciful as that. But it's a very beautiful piece of music, and I'm going to show you why it sounds so great. So I'm going to go over to this camera here, and Kevin is going to follow me across. First of all, the interesting thing about it is that it takes place in the lower part of the keyboard. Now, most music, especially melodic music, you will have a melody up here. For instance, whereas the lower end of the keyboard, the mid to lower end, has a very rich range. It has a very beautiful and rich sound. And the fact that the composer writes this entire piece, which would have been played on the harpsichord, the instrument they had before the piano was invented, really is quite a telling sign of the richness and the intensity of it. What you actually hear are four different lines. There are four different voices in the wavering rhythmic pattern. And I'll play for you the melody. I played you the melody and the bass there. And underneath that, you have a second line in the right hand. In the left hand, you have two separate lines as well, or two voices. And right at the bottom, a very strong, on-the-beat bass line. Etc., etc. So the fact that these four lines move together, and the fact that this second line in the right hand has this slightly breathless feeling, gives it this wavering, this feeling of waves in the music, which is so beautiful. It's a rondo, which means that that melody which I've just played for you comes back 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times. See if you can count them. I think it's 5. I might actually be wrong. 5 times you'll hear that melody again and again and again. But for me, the special part of this music is about 3/4 of the way through, there's a beautiful chord progression which he uses. Which is so interesting because it's the same sequence of chords repeated one step lower, one step lower, one step lower. And every time there's a note that is held, sustained from the chord before. Of course, I'm playing you a simplified version of it, of just the chords, but you can get the sense of the immense intensity that it builds in this beautiful piece of music. So this is, I'm going to play for you now the whole piece, Les Barricades Mystérieuses by François Couperin. I have a very large fly on my iPad, which I don't, whoops, I want it to be there. There we go. Sorry about that. That's rather embarrassing. Goodness gracious, I thought that was all off. It must have been sound off, but I'm now going to turn it off. This old cell phone sometimes does its own thing. You know, it reminds me once I was doing a concert at the Hilton Festival again. It was one of the first concerts that I did there. And it was a while ago, cell phones were still quite new. And I played the first piece in the program and this phone rang and everyone was horrified. A cell phone ringing in the middle of the concert. And it rang and it rang and it rang and then it stopped. And then it rang again and again and again. And eventually a friend of mine was sitting in the front row and she got up, came on stage and went behind me and turned my own cell phone off because I was playing the concert and I'd forgotten to turn my own phone off onto silence. So it was my own fault. So sorry about that. My office line, that's an old cell phone. I think it's on silent and then it suddenly does ring. So who knows? So that was, I hope you enjoyed that beautiful piece, Le Barricade Mystérieuse by Francois Couperin. I've showed you some of the detail there about how the chords worked and made those such beautiful suspended dissonances that really just, it was such a magnificent piece. It makes my skin tingle whenever I hear it. The second piece of music I'm going to play for you this evening is by the composer Robert Schumann from a series of Fantasiestücke or fantasy pieces at evening. It's the opening piece of music. And Schumann writes some really magical ideas within this. He writes a very beautiful melody, a very calm melody that, if I had to simplify it, sounds like this. One of my professors at the University in Cape Town said to me once, he said, Schumann's music is all about lifts. And I was like, well, how on earth did that work? He said, it's always going down and then going up and going down and going up. It's always these scale patterns which go down by step and then go up by steps. Rather unfortunate description, but it actually fits Schumann's music quite often very well. But instead of writing a very simple texture there, Schumann writes some very beautiful details. In the left hand, he writes a very simple counter idea. Etc., etc. It has its own little life, its own perfect sequence of notes. And what is so fascinating is that Schumann then puts a third contrast in the right hand. So if I play this very evenly, it's amazing how dreadful music can sound if it's played like a machine. What I find so intriguing and the magic, the absolutely magical moments in this is that at points he asks those two contrasting ideas and contrasting lines to clash like this. Or I mean, if we listen to that just by itself, it sounds terrible. It sounds like a car horn. It sounds like someone hooting in the road. But it's actually what Schumann writes. And if it's that detail, that finesse of playing absolutely so quietly, those little moments is like adding a beautiful spice, a bit of paprika to the music. And it's a wonderful detail just to hear those beautiful clashes in the inside voices. So I'm going to play for you. This is Schumann's At Evening from the Fantasiestücke Opus 12. beautiful opening number from Schubert's Fantasiestücke Opus 12, or fantasy pieces at evening, des Abends. Beautiful clashes. It's amazing how few notes, every note is so important. And then you hear those beautiful dissonances that he places, perfectly logical in themselves, but just such a beautiful spice and a beautiful coloring, like a perfume to that music. I'm going to move on to two compositions which deal with the idea of the habanera. Habanera, a beautiful dance which comes from Havana, Cuba, and which came back to Spain by the Spanish or Catalan sailors. Now, first of all, I'm going to play Habanera by the Catalan composer Isaac Albéniz, his very famous, in fact, his most celebrated composition, which he calls a tango, but it's not actually a tango, really. It's often think, and I've heard so many people who get misled by this title, and they suddenly start playing very rhythmically edgy sounds of an Argentine tango, which is not really appropriate. It's actually a habanera. It has this beautiful rhythm, which you'll recognize from many places. Albéniz writes, the French composer Chabrier writes, this beautiful left-hand figure is what the habanera is all about, from Havana, or even the very famous La Paloma. Etc., etc. Of course, the most famous habanera, when the French composer Georges Bizet wanted to write an opera about Spanish themes and Carmen, he created the habanera in the very famous aria. Very smooth-edged, sultry, seductive dance there. So the two pieces which I'd like to play for you are, first of all, the wonderful tango, although actually habanera, by Albéniz himself, and the second piece of music by Scott Joplin, the king of ragtime. And normally Scott Joplin's music is in a two-step with a very ragged edged, where the name ragtime comes from, the ragged rhythms, the edge of the rhythms, and a very strident march rhythm. But in this particular piece, solace, solitude, or comfort, you might say, he subtitles it as a Mexican serenade, and you'll hear the same habanera rhythm. What I find really fascinating, I find so beautiful, the moment that really strikes me about Scott Joplin's habanera, Solace, is at the end of the music, where he writes this very unique, I'm going to have to get the music to check that I actually played for you correctly here. The last section, he plays this beautiful idea where he has two notes in a very relaxed way. Two notes in the right hand, one of which is constant and one changes. It's such a typically, Scott Joplin idea, but in this very gentle, relaxed way. It's such a wonderful moment. It's such a beautiful warmth and relaxed simplicity to this music that it's a lovely change from the energy and the drive of his music in general, the ragged rhythms of his ragtime. This will then be his Mexican serenade, Solace, but first of all, the wonderful tango by Albéniz. lovely, relaxed Mexican serenade sounds of Scott Joplin. As I said, a very different contrast to the very up-tempo and ragged-edged rhythms that he normally writes, with a beautiful serenade called Solace. And before that, I played the Tango by the Catalan composer Isaac Albéniz, who was born in the county of Girona, which is exactly where I go and visit in Spain quite frequently. Now I'm going to move on, as always, into this program. It's quite a bit of fun for me to enjoy playing one of my own pieces for you this evening. And I'm going to play something which is a little bit different from the 6 pint-sized pieces which I wrote, which I've recorded with saxophone with David Sayeras. A fun little number called the Bar Stool Tango. I had to write 6 pieces, and this one was going to be something quite up-tempo and quite a lot of energy. But also the titles, I then had to bring together ideas around alcoholic activities, because I was writing under my pseudonym Richard Guinness at this point. So there was beer drinking, Guinness, you get the idea. So the Bar Stool Tango, a fun little number which I'm going to play for you. I don't normally play it on my own, so it's quite tricky to actually play it, all the chords and the rhythms on the piano itself. But the thing, just to point out what I see, or what I actually found in the music, which I think is very interesting, is this constant contrast between the major and minor. The piece is in a minor key, and minor keys we generally associate with music that is, say, a little bit sad. So, for instance, a funeral march is in the minor. Lots of minor key. Beethoven wrote wonderful dramatic music in the minor. And so in this particular tango, I write in a minor key, but then I keep changing it into the major key. And the melody, I mean, I didn't do this on purpose, it just sort of came to me in its own way, keeps moving up, it keeps rising up and up and up and up. And it keeps going from the minor to the major. And there's one very interesting moment which I like at the middle of the piece. The tempo and the dynamic energy of the pieces rises, and then suddenly it sinks back to this very mysterious and quiet, sustained tension of the minor key. And the reason why I'm mentioning the majors and minors quite a lot is that's going to lead me into the next piece of music which I'll play after that, a beautiful Chopin waltz. But first of all, this is my own composition, the Bar Stool Tango. Of course, that's actually not a tango at all. If I'm being precise about my terminologies there, that's more bossa nova with a bit of an edge. One of my own compositions from the pint-sized pieces that, as you heard, I don't normally play on my own. It's quite a complicated one to put all that together, normally with a solo instrument. But that was my own version there. So moving on, as I said, I'd like to play for you this composition by Frédéric Chopin, a waltz in A minor. Now, I find this one of his most poignant waltzes. It's such an incredibly delicate mood that he captures in this piece of music. And there are various elements that bring this about. First of all, he has a real melody in the bass, like a cello melody, quite low down in the music. That's the first idea. So it's very unusual to have almost like a drone, like a very folk-like drone music, which he might have picked up from the Polish traditional music, which he often composed. The melody itself, which of course is not how the music goes at all. I'm just making a simplified version. Chopin, in his genius, that beautiful plaintive melody adds so many interesting details to it. First of all, he doesn't play all the notes on the beat. He adds a few notes of silence, as though there's a slight catching your breath or quite a sudden uncertainty in the music. And then instead of a simple melody, a beautiful cascade of notes. The notes seem to slide like a snake, ornamenting the outline. And this detail, this ornamentation around the basic melody is such an important part of Chopin's style. Something very interesting happens here. He includes a melody. So out of this gloom and this darkness and this melancholic note that he's created, he creates a moment of joy and happiness in the major key. But then, what is so amazing, he repeats that exact melody immediately in the minor. He transforms it. And those three elements really form the basis of the piece. You come back at the end of this to the beautiful cello melody in the bass. And just when you think the composition is over, that's when the real magic happens for me. He carries on with a beautiful continuation, a slight tail piece, or coda you might say, where he changes the key, and it's like out of this stormy and very grey, melancholic afternoon, a beautiful ray of sunshine appears. It's one of the most magical moments in Chopin's output, in his whole repertoire. It's such a subtly unexpected, magical moment. It's really always a beautiful moment to play. So this is the Waltz, Opus 34, number 2 in A minor by Frédéric Chopin. Listen out for all those details. Yeah. The beautiful melodic simplicity there of Chopin's music in the Waltz A minor, Opus 34, number 2. Did you hear that extra moment at the end? It's just incredible. Just when you think the piece is finished and that beautiful cello melody on the left returns, it expands into a whole new idea just when you think it's all over. I think it's one of my favorite pieces of music there. Really wonderful stuff. I'm going to play for you something a little bit different, a composition by Leon Jessel called The March of the Tin Soldiers. And this particular piece of music I've included because it's just a lighter, very much fun and enjoyable little moment that is originally written for orchestra and intended for orchestra, but when it's transferred to a piano version, it really has so many elements of lightness and joy and fun in it. I just need to find the score of this quickly. I've completely muddled up my arrangement of scores that I had. The melody itself, very march-like and very light. These are the tin soldiers. These are toy soldiers after all, very light, and eventually comes into a more substantial march. In the middle part, there's a different little melody of like almost like a military parade, you might say. And in the orchestral version, there's a beautiful little bassoon solo on that, which is repeated. Very difficult to do because on the piano, I've now got to do all of these different ideas. Melody in the right hand, march-like bass rhythms in the left, and then this wonderful little counterpoint. Over this. Now if I try and put those together, this is what it should sound like. Let me see if I can get it right. That wasn't too bad. And then the trombones take over. It's a bit of a oompa and a bit of weight in the bass. Before a resplendent version of the march theme returns, and we go back to the beginning with the little trumpets and the drums, calling the tin soldiers to their arm. Then it all comes to a crashing halt. The music suddenly stops, and written in the score is the notes bang with triple fortissimo, very loud, and all the soldiers fall down as they topple over one by one, falling into each other. So it's a very charming little piece of music, as I say, orchestral piece, but in fact when it's transferred to the piano, it's something light, and there's so many different possibilities to play with. was a bit of fun. The March of the Toy Tin Soldiers, the Tin Soldiers March by Leon Jessel, an orchestral piece arranged there for piano. And as I said, it just has such possibility to bring different orchestral sounds and colors and to really try and manage that rather tricky moment of having a counter melody with the march rhythm and everything else going on in the two fingers of the left hand. A tricky little moment, but when it works, it's really lovely. So I'm going to carry on and probably end this evening's program with two compositions, one of which is by Maurice Ravel, great French composer, and the second of which is by George Gershwin. And what's so interesting about this is that the two composers somehow found a middle ground in terms of the interest. Ravel was very interested in jazz and the energy and the excitement of this new sound of early American music, early jazz music. And Gershwin himself was so fascinated as a music writer of musicals and a writer of jazz music to try and create a classical framework and a classical style that they sort of found a point where they almost crossed over. And in fact, at one point, they did actually meet. Ravel was visiting America and premiered several of his works at Carnegie Hall in New York. And straight after the concert, they had a great party, and there's a photograph of this, that the 53-year-old Ravel was meeting the 29-year-old George Gershwin. And Gershwin was obviously very taken by this and was fascinated by Ravel, not only for his great compositions, but he was also, and still is, generally acknowledged as the master orchestrator, the person who really knows how to write for an orchestra like no one else. So, of course, what did he do? He thought, I need to have some lessons from this man. And he went and asked Ravel and said, I would like to study with you. I would like you to teach me composition. And apparently Ravel said, having heard Gershwin play that evening, said something along the lines of, well, I would rather you be a first-rate George Gershwin than a second-rate Maurice Ravel, which is an interesting point. He thought that Gershwin had certainly his own style and his own voice that didn't want to be messed with. But the other interesting concept is that apparently in this conversation about lessons and about how the interaction was going to work, Gershwin asked Ravel how much it would cost for him to study with Ravel. And Ravel asked him, well, how much do you earn? And of course, Gershwin was this hugely successful writer of musicals. And he told him a vast sum of money, to which Ravel apparently replied, maybe it is I who should be taking lessons from you then. He was obviously quite surprised and not intimidated, but puzzled about the vast quantities of money and impressed the vast quantities of money that Gershwin earned. But however, what's more interesting, I discovered today in the research about this, is that this account and these two interactions have been widely quoted and very well known. These anecdotes that Ravel and Gershwin were so admiring, and that Gershwin had received this accolade that he should be a first-rate Gershwin and not a second-rate Ravel. And apparently in the research, people are always wondering, about these stories and the authenticity of them. They found the only real source of it that could be quoted was in fact from Gershwin himself and his family. No one else had actually heard of this, or no one else knew firsthand of this interaction. And that brings me to think, well, that's very good. That's actually how it should be. One should always promote. What a great opportunity. Promote your own work and promote your own possibility. And it reminds me of I was once, after a performance, I was studying with a teacher in Cape Town, and he met me after the concert and he said, well, how did it go? How did your performance go? And I was about to say, well, yeah, it wasn't so great. And I thought, and he said, stop. He said, if you're talking to me, tell me the honest version. He said, but if you're talking to anybody else, always tell them it was wonderful. He said, there's got so many people out there who will give you bad publicity and say terrible things about you. You shouldn't be one of them. He said, if anyone asks you how your concert went, you should always say, it was fantastic. I was incredible. I was on fire. It was the best concert I've ever played. He said, only give yourself good publicity. And I thought that was really great advice. Gershwin must have got that advice too. So the two pieces I'm going to play for you. First of all, the Pavane for the Dead Princess. Apparently there was no princess and no one died in this process, but Ravel was inspired to write a piece of music that had this very austere, stately air of a so procession maybe, like a coronation, you might say, but something of a very poignant and beautiful, stately affair. And it's this beautiful, very slow rhythm that he writes with a very sustained melody. And then straight after that, the two pieces, in fact, that Gershwin apparently played for Ravel after their meeting at the party after the concert at Carnegie Hall. Gershwin's transcriptions of his songs, The Man I Love and I Got Rhythm. And what's so interesting about these, if you listen to how Ravel writes and you hear the beautiful sounds and clashes of tones that he includes, for instance, if I play these two notes together, it doesn't sound very nice. I can see Kevin, the sound technician, going, my gosh, what are those awful notes? Why is he playing something so horrible? Or something like this. And in this music, the Ravel writes, he includes these, but he includes the notes played in such a subtle way that these beautiful dissonances actually create, again, like perfumed spices, like spices in your food, like a touch of saffron, a touch of paprika, or a little fragrance that just catches the edge. And such beautiful chords and such interesting sounds that Ravel reaches a point from a classical side. And if you hear Gershwin later on, Gershwin could have written, or becomes these beautiful jazz chords of complex sounds. And so actually it seems like they reach a middle ground together from completely different points. So this is Ravel's Pavane for the Dead Princess, followed by two song transcriptions, The Man I Love and I Got Rhythm by George Gershwin. Short and sweet. Exciting little version there of George Gershwin's own I Got Rhythm and the Man I Love. And if you're interested in seeing that, you can find Gershwin himself, that actual clip, Gershwin playing those two pieces in concert on YouTube. And there's a link that will be on my website if it's not there already. And before that, Maurice Ravel, the French composer who met Gershwin, his beautiful Pavane for the Dead Princess, but no dead princess involved at all, purely a fictitious title. So that brings us to the end. It's just gone 7 o'clock. We've got a little bit over time this evening. Hope you've enjoyed the selection of music of beautiful moments. And this is Christopher Daigan signing out for the evening. Thank you for joining me tonight, coming from our home in Pietermaritzburg. On Saturday evening in concert, I'll be playing another second volume of music by Franz Liszt, including his beautiful Un Sospiro and 2 Hungarian rhapsodies, including well-known music, such incredibly well-known music, the Hungarian Rhapsody in number 2, played in Tom and Jerry, played in Sparky's Magic Piano, I believe, and I'll be playing that for you on Saturday evening. And a very exciting program. Please do join us again at 6 p.m. for that. And then next Thursday, I'll be playing a selection of music where I am trying to research some of the most popular classical melodies not written for piano. It's going to be a bit of a challenge because these are not usually things that I would play in concert, but we're not actually in concert. We're doing a live stream from our home. It's very informal. It's relaxed. You're enjoying yourself at home. I'm enjoying myself at home. We should break all the rules and just make up beautiful music, whatever it takes. So that's going to be next week's exciting program. If you are able to support us, please do so. I'll be showing you the links on your screen in a minute, or you can visit our website at musicrevival.co.za. Hope you enjoyed the music and the presentation this evening. Please let us know on Facebook or email our website what your experiences of the evening has been. Thank you again to the support of Kevin Little and Big Beat for the beautiful sound, beautiful visuals, lovely orchids, lovely artwork. I hope you're enjoying it in your lovely home. And we look forward to seeing you on Saturday and next week. Look after yourself and keep well. Just going back to Facebook, once again, thank you for all of those, everyone who has joined us. Gosh, I can't speak. Thank you. Anne Stevens, thank you for your support. Trish Gillamina, thank you always for your support. Thank you for all your help, support of the concerts in Kloof. Ivan Dowis, Lara Kirsten still watching. Hope you enjoyed it, Lara. Always remember your beautiful Albanus performances and fascinated by your contributions that you're sharing on Facebook at the moment. Really wonderful to hear you play. Elizabeth Dixon, thank you for joining us this evening. Thank you, everyone. Anne Stevens, Julie Dowdle in Turkey, thank you for joining us. Thank you always for your positive comments and your support. I always look forward to reading the comments and to seeing what's going on in the process and to see how things are happening. So please do comment on Facebook and I will be able to reply. James McKnight, thanks, Peter McKnight, thank you so much for your support. And Sophia Chen, you're most welcome. I'm pleased it made your day. That's lovely, lovely to hear. Jenny Bonsignor, thank you for joining us again. Always lovely to hear from everyone what your experiences are, and I will try and reply to everyone. It's always a great learning experience to watch and to see what everyone has to say and offer about their feedback on the performances, and even most of all, to listen to my own playing. There is no better teacher than being able to listen to your own performance. And I've learned so much from these live streams, listening to my own playing, looking to see what works, what comes across and what doesn't. So always an exciting moment. Would anyone like to see, we have a visitor in the studio. If you're still watching, I'm going to take that off. Look, here's a visitor coming to see. Here is little Lucy. Little Lucy, the long-haired dachshund. Come, little Lucy. Little Lucy's going to have, look how pretty her little face is. Isn't that just the most adorable little face you've ever seen? Little Lucy's come to visit. Did you enjoy the music? Which one did you like the most? There we go. Lucy's here for the evening. Thank you for joining us tonight. Have a good evening and look after yourselves.